In a world where hustle culture collides with wellness warnings and workplace demands keep evolving, how do we stay sharp without burning out? How do we navigate the endless stream of wellness trends while actually getting results? This is the Work and Wellness Podcast, and I'm your host, Angela Davies. Drawing from my own journey of wins, stumbles, and honest revelations, I'll be bringing you raw, unfiltered conversations with experts and inspiring guests who've been there, lived it, and found a better way. Together, we'll cut through the noise and workshop what it really means to be well in today's workplace. No more choosing between success and sanity. No more sacrificing health for achievement. Whether you're struggling with burnout, searching for purpose, or simply ready to work smarter, not harder, you're in the right place. This is real talk about real solutions for real people. Let's get into it. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the show. Today we're talking about stress. We are still in the silly season, and a lot of people I have been speaking to have been saying how they're feeling much more stressed than usual. And so today I wanted to cover off on the topic of stress, and more importantly, how there has been some really interesting studies that show that our mindset and the way that we frame stress actually has a really big impact on the way that this stress impacts us, which is really cool, I think, because it means that we're able to change our experience of the stress that's in our lives. I know there's a lot of holiday commitments, we've got a lot of deadlines, and so today I'm going to talk about how we can make our stress work for us and how we can better utilize that stress so that it is a positive or an ally rather than an enemy. Let's start with a definition of stress, just so that we're on the same page, and what stress actually is, because I think it's a term that definitely gets thrown around a lot, but what is it? Stress is the body's complex biological and psychological response to perceived challenges, demands, or threats that disrupt an individual's homeostasis or balance. It involves a cascade of physiological, cognitive, and emotional reactions designed to help an organism adapt and cope with environmental or internal pressures. Interestingly, stress is not inherently positive or negative, but a natural biological signal that prompts adaptation, alertness, and potential growth when managed effectively. And I think when we think about stress with that definition, it really kind of brings it down away from being that negative, sort of overwhelmed feeling like everything's on top of us to a bodily response that actually is designed to help us. And if we think back to caveman days, stress was designed to create responses in the body that meant that we could survive if a saber-toothed tiger, for example, was chasing after us. It made us more focused, it increased our heart rate, it increased our breath rate, and it meant that we can get quicker breaths in. And so when we think about it in that context, it's actually designed to save us. And I think in modern times, more and more, it's become a little bit of a negative thing as opposed to something that's designed to save us. And if we are able to reframe our mindset around stress, I think we can really change the narrative and also our experience of it. There are 3 different types of stress, and I wanted to share those. The first one is acute stress. It's a short-term response, an immediate reaction to current or anticipated challenges. It can be motivating and performance enhancing. You think about like the stress or the nervousness you feel right before you do a presentation. If you're a runner, right before you start a race, it's good for us. It can really enhance our performance, and that stress is a good thing. Acute stress is an immediate physiological activation. We have a rapid heart rate increase, a heightened sensory perception, so we're really hyper aware of everything that's around us. Our respiratory rate increases, and we have a temporary immune system boost, which is pretty cool. You think, stress can actually boost our immune system if it's an acute, short-term bout of stress. What we want to try and avoid, though, is chronic stress, which is the second type of stress. And chronic stress is prolonged and persistent stress response to maybe ongoing challenges without adequate recovery. And I think this is what we kind of get trapped in today's world. We're constantly going from one stressor to the next, and things that our body perceive as stressors, like the frustration or anxiety we get around looking at our phone or getting alerts on our phone or emails. And that can mean that we're chronically stressed because we're constantly in that zone of hyper arousal and on edge, worrying or alert to everything. Chronic stress has potential ongoing health implications. It prolongs cortisol elevation, and so interesting, there's some research that shows that there's potential reduction in the volume of your hippocampus in your brain with chronic stress. Now, your hippocampus is responsible for learning and memory, and it plays a crucial role in emotional regulation. So I don't know about you, but I've certainly experienced this. When I feel stressed, I really struggle to remember things. It's almost like your body shuts down that function of memory because it's focused on other things. And so there's been some interesting research emerge around that. Chronic stress, as opposed to acute stress, actually compromises your immune system functioning. It increases your inflammation markers, and when our inflammation markers are increased, it is the precursor for a lot of disease. And there's potential neurogenesis disruption. Neurogenesis is the process of creating new neurons or brain cells throughout an individual's lifetime. And interestingly, contrary to previous scientific beliefs, we now know that the adult brain can generate new neurons in specific regions of the brain. So chronic stress has actually been shown to potentially disrupt the creation of new brain cells. Very interesting. And so that chronic stress is what we want to try and avoid. So really making sure we have periods of rest rather than always in that hyper aroused, hyper stressed state. There's a third type of stress, and this is a great type of stress. It's called eustress. So EU stress. It's positive motivational stress, and it's associated with excitement and personal and professional growth. It enhances performance and resilience. It enhances cognitive flexibility, so the ability of your brain to adapt to things quickly and learn quickly, and it promotes adaptive learning. Now, from a brain perspective, there are positive stress neurotransmitters that release into our brain when we are in this eustress state, so this positive stress state. Dopamine is released, which is responsible for motivation and reward. Norepinephrine, which is responsible for focus and attention, and oxytocin, which is responsible for social bonding and resilience. So this type of stress is actually really positive stress. This is the type of stress that a runner might experience at the starting blocks of a race, or an Olympian perhaps at the start of their event. It's this level of stress that you almost need to get the level of performance, the motivation, and the focus to do what you need to do. So how do we ensure that where possible, we experience a more positive response to stress? There's some cool research on this from both Harvard and Stanford University. The first one from Harvard is around stress mindset research. So this is all about our mindset, and I love things that you can change with your mindset because it means we are in control of that. We can absolutely influence and impact it. And what this Harvard research found was that mindset is more predictive of health outcomes than stress intensity. And that there's a 43% reduction in stress-related health risks when we positively view the stress. So what that's saying is, regardless of what the stressor is, the way that we view that stressor can change the way that we experience the stress, and it's more predictive of our health outcomes than the actual stress itself, which is phenomenal. And I love this because all it takes is a bit of a reframe for us on the stress we're experiencing to view it in a more positive way. Now, this is not about toxic positivity in any means. So I'm not saying if something horrific is happening that we need to add some toxic positivity and make it into a good thing. But there are plenty of things that happen in our day-to-day jobs that we could reframe and create and turn into a positive stress, a learning experience, an opportunity for growth. Stanford neuroplasticity studies show that stress is a neural growth stimulus. So it creates new neurons in your brain and helps to grow them. Challenging experiences trigger neurogenesis. So that's what I referred to before about creating new brain cells. It increases your plasticity in your brain, so your ability to change and learn new things. It enhances your cognitive reserve. And when you build your cognitive reserve, it helps to prevent Alzheimer's and dementia, which is amazing. And stress can develop emotional regulation capabilities, which is so, so powerful in today's world. And so those two studies really show that there is a positive impact to stress on our bodies, on our brains, to our learning, our development, and our growth. So how do we shift our mindset to view stress as a help rather than a hindrance? The first tip that I like to use, and I try and reframe myself, and I often just say it to myself over and over again until I believe it or my brain believes it. And the first one is to view stress as a signal of personal challenge, not a threat. So sometimes just taking a moment to sit, you might even want to do it over some breath work, and just say to yourself, I am safe. This is not a threat. It's simply an opportunity for growth. The second one is recognizing that stress is a natural physiological response. It's not a bad thing. It's your body doing what it's designed to do. Your body is working in the way that it's supposed to work. It's working in harmony. The third thing is identifying potential learning and growth in stressful situations. Sometimes we're not able to do it in the situation. Let's be honest about it. Sometimes we're in the situation, it feels really stressful, and we're so hyper-focused that we're not able to take a step back and see how it might be an opportunity for growth. But if you do have a moment where you can reflect a little bit, take that time and just think about how this situation or this challenge or stress could represent an opportunity for growth. Developing a growth mindset. So when we develop a growth mindset is amazing work from a psychologist called Dr. Carol Dweck. And what she found was adding a simple word to the end of a sentence changes the way that we view that activity. So rather than saying, I can't, I'm not able to, I can't get through this situation, simply adding the word yet to the end of the sentence helps improve your growth mindset. And when we've got a growth mindset, it helps us to embrace challenges as opportunities for development. So that's something you might like to try when you're going through a stressful situation and think, oh my gosh, I just don't know how to do this. I don't know how to tackle this problem. I don't know what to do next. Simply just add a yet on the end of it. I don't know how to tackle this problem yet. And it stops it from being so finite, and it lets your brain know that you will keep working to find a solution. Growth mindset also helps us understand that abilities and resilience can be developed. We are not born with these. So a fixed mindset says that we are born with all of our abilities and our smarts to achieve what we need to achieve. But a growth mindset shows that we absolutely can develop the abilities and resilience that we need to get through life. And I think that's amazing. It's all an opportunity to be developed. A really good sentence reframe from I can't handle this. Sometimes we're going through a stressful situation and we think, oh, I just can't handle this. I can't handle it at all. I'm overwhelmed. Replace I can't handle this with I'm learning to manage this. It's a really powerful reframe, and it tells your brain that you are going to manage it. You're just learning how. The final one is to focus on the process rather than the outcome. So sometimes when we look so far ahead, we think, I just don't know how I'm going to get to the finish line. I don't know how I'm going to overcome this stress. I just can't possibly see what I'm going to do. And this is something that I did when I was running my marathon. There are certainly points throughout that run when I just thought, how on earth am I going to make it 42 kilometers to the end of that finish line? And it was at this point where you could see the professional runners lapping back. So, you know, they're almost finished and you still got 12 Ks or so to go. You've run 30. And Liam, my husband, just said to me, focus on 1 foot in front of the other. Just 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot. And eventually I made it across the finish line. And so focusing on the process over the outcome just helps take that big leap out of the situation. And what you can control is the process. You can always control the next step that you take. You're not always going to be able to control what that outcome is. There's another way to help shift your mindset for stress to be a positive rather than a negative. And it's called cognitive reprisal technique. So basically it's about consciously challenging the negative stress narratives. So every time you get that negative stress narrative where it's bad, I feel stressed, you know, my heart rate's up, I just am not going to be able to handle this. It encourages you to separate facts from emotional interpretations. And so what I really love to do is write down on a piece of paper what I know is true. In this situation, what do I know that is true? And that just helps you to separate how you're feeling from the facts. I do want to say it's really important to develop and have self-compassion during high stress periods as well. Don't be hard on yourself, because when we're hard on ourselves, it just is a bit of a vicious cycle and it makes that stress worse. So try and develop some self-compassion to high stress periods as well. I wanted to share with you a daily stress management toolkit that can help tackle chronic stress. So when you're in the thick of it, you know, COVID was certainly a time when we were in chronic stress for a lot of people. And so there's a daily toolkit that can really help you manage your stress. Now, before I cover this off, I just want to say it is not about doing all of these things. And if any of this adds more stress to your day, then don't do it. It's not about adding more stress. It's about proactively trying to inject things into your day that are going to help you manage that stress and help your nervous system recover from chronic stress. So a morning routine, 5-minute breath work in the morning. Just take 5 minutes when you first wake up and do some breath work. You might want to listen to a breath work on Spotify. You might want to do some box breathing where you inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. Or you might want to do the Stanford breathing, which I've mentioned in a previous episode, which is a big inhale through the nose, an extra sip of air at the top, and a big sigh out through the mouth. You might want to do that 5 times. So just a quick breath work when you first wake up. It helps to let your nervous system know that you are safe, and it helps to switch on your rest and digest. Hydration, really important, because when we're dehydrated, our body thinks we're in a state of stress, like we don't have access to that water and hydration. So making sure that you are staying hydrated. So have a big glass of water first thing in the morning. A nutritious breakfast. Now, I know that fasting is something that a lot of people do. I'm not saying it's good or bad. All I'm saying is when you are stressed and your body's in a stress state, fasting puts your body under more stress. And so if you're in a chronically stressed state, I encourage you to just take some time where you have a nutritious breakfast with some protein, fats, and fiber, and don't fast for the time when you're chronically stressed. The final one is some morning pages or intention setting in the morning. So writing down what you want to achieve for the day, how you want to feel at the end of the day, and how you want to respond to the day rather than react. So those are 4 quick things. They don't take long. So start with breath work, have a big glass of water in the morning, make yourself a nutritious breakfast, and set intentions for the day. For a midday reset, a short walk outside. If you can, get outside, get some natural light, and go for a short walk just to get that body moving. Taking a mindful break. You might want to do a 5-minute breathing exercise, or you might just want to sit and notice what's around you. And a little hydration check. How much have you drank? If you haven't drank anything since you had your morning glass of water, can you drink something at lunchtime just to top up that hydration? And then finally, an evening wind down routine. Digital detox. When you're chronically stressed, adding extra stimulation through television, through your phone, can just add a lot of extra stress on top, and your body doesn't get time to wind down that it really needs. So from 8 p.m, can you switch off your devices? Some reflection journaling. It might be just 3 things that went well that day. Anything you'd like to do differently. You might want to do gratitude. And then finally, a consistent sleep schedule. So as much as you can, waking up and going to bed at the same time, it helps you sleep. And when you get a good sleep, that really helps with your stress management. So that's sort of a daily stress management toolkit. It is not arduous by any means. It really doesn't take any longer than 10 to 20 minutes out of an entire day. And it has a really big impact on your ability to downregulate, calm the nervous system, and help break that cycle of chronic stress. I wanted to share a couple of book recommendations on stress. If you feel like stress is something that impacts you a lot, or you're feeling like at this time of year, you're just feeling really stressed and you want a book to read. There's one called The Upside of Stress by Kelly McGonigal, and it's science-backed. And it's about a stress transformation approach and changing your mindset to view stress positively, like I was talking about. So it has some really good mindset modification strategies. And then the second one is Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers by Robert Sapolsky. It's a bit of a funny title, but it talks about our evolutionary stress response, and it explores that so we understand where stress comes from, and so we know that it's actually good for us. It's a comprehensive overview of the physiological mechanisms of stress, and it definitely has some humor infused in it to lighten up those scientific insights. I just want to leave you with a few points on stress. Stress is not an external force imposing itself, but a dynamic, interpretive experience where our perception creates its ultimate impact and meaning. So our perception has a lot to do with what meaning we make out of stress. The same boiling water that softens the potato hardens the egg. So it's really about your view of it or what you're made of rather than the circumstances. And again, I don't want to minimize any really, really challenging hardships or stressors. There are some things in life that are really, really challenging. But from a day-to-day perspective and a work perspective, our mindset really can impact the way that we view things. So are we going to be the potato or the egg? Stress management is not about elimination, but about developing a healthy, adaptive relationship with life's challenges. And it's a skill that can be learned, practiced, and refined over time. And that is really the most powerful thing that I wanted to share with you, that your approach to stress can be learned, practiced, and refined over time with a little bit of work. And it can completely change the way that we approach stress and the way that we feel about stress. And it's so incredible that it's actually within our power to be able to do that. So hopefully you've enjoyed today's episode and got some tips around how to better deal with stress and change our mindset to view stress in a positive light. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining me on Work and Wellness. If today's episode resonated with you, remember, someone in your network might need to hear this too. Share it with a colleague or friend who could use these insights. I'd love to keep the conversation going, so find us on Instagram at Mind Your Grit, where we share daily tips and continue these discussions. And if you found value in today's episode, please take time to rate and review the show. It makes such a huge difference and helps other people discover conversations they might really need. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Each week, we're building a community of people who believe that success and well-being go hand in hand. You can find the notes, resources, and links from today's episode at mindyourgrit.com. This is Work and Wellness with Angela Davies. Your work matters, your wellness matters, and this is where it all comes together. See you next week.